Recording in progress.
Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jeevanam Kavibhiriritam Kalmashapaham Sravanamangalam Srimadaatatam Bhuvi Grananti Ye Bhurida Jana. So the master and Vijay Goswami. So the conversation between the master and Vijay Goswami is going on. As in the last class we saw that Vijay's question was that which is superior, the path of jnana or the path of bhakti. And on response to Vijay's question, that is bhakti alone sufficient for the attainment of God for his vision? Master replied, yes, one can see God through bhakti alone, but it must be ripe bhakti, prema bhakti and raga bhakti. When one has that bhakti, one loves God even as the mother loves the child the mother, or the wife the husband. So that's the thing which we find Sri Ramakrishna is indicating again and again, that bhakti alone is sufficient for the attainment of God realization. So what's the idea behind it? That whether we pursue the path of jnana or we pursue the path of bhakti, the essential thing is devotion. That generally we think that the concept that I am the Atman, I am the Brahman, this is jnana. But one thing we never realize, that who is saying this? That I am the Atman, I am the Brahman, I am not the mind, I am not the senses, I am not the body, I am not the feelings, I am not the emotions. Who is saying it? It's the mind. The mind is saying, I am not the mind. So we are saying something which we don't realize. It in Vedanta is called ativada. We are speaking something which is beyond our realization. I am saying I am not the mind, I am Atman. But who is saying? It is the mind who is saying. So the general notion that we have, that the concept that I am the Atman, I am the Brahman, I am not the mind, not the senses, not the body, is jnana. But actually it is not jnana. The jnana is the realization. When you really get established in yourself, for that you have to transcend the mind. And then you get established in the self. Then only that realization dawns in. Realization is not a mere concept. It is something which speaks of our experience. So, for that, bhakti is must. Even a jnana yogi should have bhakti. You may say, how? Even in Viveka Chudamani you will find that Shankaracharya, Bhagavad Pada Shankaracharya, is describing that one of the essential need for attainment of spiritual realization is bhakti. But as he is explaining a treatise on Jnana Yoga, so there the definition of bhakti is, what is the definition? That the love, the devotion for this constant contemplation on the idea that I am Atman, I am Brahman, is bhakti. What's the idea? That you should develop, whatever I may be practicing, I should develop a devotion, a love for the concept on which I am meditating. That is important. The concept itself is not important. How intensely I am meditating on that concept with love, through love, that is important. It is a process which will take us to the realization. What it speaks of, that even in our day-to-day life we will find to develop love for anything, even in our day-to-day life. If I have to develop love for my studies as a student, maybe at the very beginning of my studies I don't have any as such a love for studies. It is something like a compulsion. My parents say, the teachers say, I also feel because of that internalized authority. Parent is the authority, teacher is the authority, school is the authority, everyone, the authority says that the only way to success in life is to excel in the academic field. Well and good. Now that authority is internalized. I also start saying it. Now I think that though I have a lot of distractions, that as someone within me is saying that I have to study to really excel in life, to be integrated in life, what happened? I think as if that my studies are something which is a matter of will. That though I don't like it, I use my willpower. But know it for certain, with willpower we can never attain the highest. Willpower is good at the beginning. That though I don't like it, let me use my willpower and take a resolution to do it again and again. And nowadays in the modern psychology they speak of neuroplasticity. What you do again and again, that as if creates a path in the mind. The mind gets wired, and once it gets wired, you develop a liking for it. Anything, if you do, that's the way we develop a love for doing anything good. Maybe at the beginning I don't like it, but I know that this is the thing which is going to help me to excel in my life. I use my willpower, and I think as if at the beginning I think I have to use this willpower throughout my life. No. Know it for certain that if I use my willpower at the beginning for some time, with patience, with perseverance, then what will happen? In short time I will find I have developed a liking for it. Once I develop a liking, now my sadhana, my endeavor becomes spontaneous. You don't have to meditate willfully on the thing you love. As we say again and again, the mother never meditates on the child lest she forgets her child. That why do we meditate? That in our day-to-day life we forget God. The distractions of life drags us so much that I forget God. And that's why I meditate, lest I not forget God. But does a mother ever meditate on the child that I will forget her? Never it happens. Why? Because she has an intense love for the child. The love entails in real meditation. So you'll find that whatever the mother is doing throughout her day, in the background of her mind, constantly they will find the thought of the child is of course there. She can never forget. So what it speaks of, that through will, when I do a thing again and again, it creates as if a path in the mind. Once the path is created, now I develop a love for doing it. Now the willpower is not required. The will has got ripened into devotion. Once you develop the devotion, now you will find your practice becomes more and more intense. When you love anything, your practice becomes intense, focused, more focused. The meditation has become spontaneous. And when it becomes focused, what happens? When I do anything with full focus, all the distractions naturally falls off. When I am watching the match in the TV, someone calls me, I am so much focused with what is going on in the TV screen. The sound enters my ear, but it doesn't register into my mind. Why? Because the entire mind is absorbed in what's going on in the TV screen. It doesn't have any scope for attending to any other perceptions. If you go on being focused more intensely, not only the external distractions, even the bodily feeling starts falling off. You will find those who are extremely passionate about, say, a painting, drawing, or about some classical instrumental music. They will be singing or pursuing their profession or this this art with so much intensity that hours pass. They forget their need for food. They forget about their hunger. Hunger no more disturbs them. Hunger, thirst, everything falls off. The need for rest, that they are tired, they don't realize. You will find a surgeon operating on a patient for 8 hours, a complicated operation. For 8 hours he is standing, he doesn't feel any strain on his leg, he doesn't feel hunger, thirst, tiredness, nothing. What has happened? The entire mind has got focused on this end of the scalpel with which he is operating. He knows for certain that a little carelessness will be at the risk of the life of the patient. This necessity has given him the focus. And from that focus that is so tremendous, everything has fallen off. What to speak of external distraction? Even the bodily feelings, the hunger, the thirst, the mind cannot register them. They are the bodily alarm system. Hunger is a bodily alarm system which says, the pangs of hunger is saying it's time for food, have food. But the mind cannot register it. It is focused in something which it really likes. So that's all that the bodily feeling starts falling off. Just see, love can give intense meditation. And that's the state in our scripture is called videha. That though you are in the body, you forget that you are having a body. And that's the real happiness. When I'm enjoying a meal, a delicacy which I like, it is just a matter of 5 minutes. From morning I was preparing, I sit for my food, in 5 minutes everything is over, I'm satiated. And that's the limit. I cannot continue with my happiness, it's over. But just see that those who are in the pursuit of this performing arts, they have developed a love for it. They go for hours together. Just find that this type of happiness, as if there is no end. You have entered into a state of flow. And that happens with meditation. That meditation ripening into devotion. That you have developed love for it. Whether you are a jnani or you are a bhakta. The jnani has developed love for Atma, that's vichara. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. On that he has developed love. A devotee has developed on the concept of the divine. God is, I am. The relation is eternal. We are in eternal companionship with the divine. This life is limited. I was born at a certain point of time. I'm going to die. I'm going through all the changes. But the real me, that doesn't die. That was, that is, and that will be in eternal companionship with the divine. So whether I am a devotee or I am a jnani, both are meditating on a concept which is negating this limited idea of the self. So through this devotion, when he has developed love, what has happened at last? You find everything has fallen off. Meditation has become so intense. As in the gospel, we will find again and again. Sri Ramakrishna entering into samadhi, forgetting about his body, forgetting about all bodily needs. Even he cannot stand. Someone has to come and support him. Otherwise he will fall. So much deeply absorbed he is within. So then what happens at last? At last what happens? We may, however we may be focused, I can never get rid of the idea that I am this body-mind complex. That's the ego. The idea of ego. That's I am this little punny self. A small part of the mind, however focused it may be, is always hanging on to that self idea that I am this limited body-mind complex. At last, when the meditation becomes really intense, very intense, that portion of the mind which is attached to the ego, that also is carried away by the object of meditation. So now what happens? This wonderful thing happens. It's in scripture that is called the state of samadhi, where you have entered, it is called the Triputi Bheda. Triputi Bheda means what? That however intense my meditation may be, I know I am the meditator and there is an object of meditation, and the meditation is the process by which the meditator is connected with the object of meditation. So this is there. These three ideas are there. Dhyana, dhyata, dheya. Dhyana is the process, dhyata is the meditator, dheya is the object of meditation. But as the ego is there, these three ideas are there. When at last your meditation becomes so intense that the ego also is washed away, is also annihilated because of the tremendous focus on the object of meditation, this triad collapses. Triputi Bheda means collapsing of the triad. Dhyana, dhyata, dheya. And then what happens? You no more feel that I am meditating on this object. You as if become one with the object of meditation because the ego has fallen off. And when that happens, in the words of Sri Ramakrishna, you have as if created a hole in the wall of ego. You have created a hole in the wall of ego. Ego is as if like a wall. There's a wall. I don't know what's on the other side of the wall. And I just make a hole and peep through it. And I see infinite expanse. Infinite expanse. So similarly, when I make this hole in the wall of ego, I relate to the infinite dimension of my existence. Whatever may be my faith, whatever may be the denomination of my religion, the one who is not just a mere believer, who has developed the tremendous love, tremendous intensity for the love of God, whatever may be his religion, at last he is going to that Advaitic realization where he merges with the object of meditation to realize the ultimate, that spiritual dimension of his existence. So the ego has fallen off. So that's why Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Shekhane, Shop Shealer Akra. All the fox howls in the same manner when they reach that state. And that's the validity of Advaita Vedanta. If only by following the path which has been enunciated by the Advaitic tradition, if that only led us to that realization, then easily it could have been criticized that it's a way of just programming the mind to take you to certain hallucination. But we find in all the traditions, you just read the history of any religion, you read the life of these Christian mystics, of the Islam mystics, everywhere you will find they're speaking of that unitary experience. Those who went through that, their path to the ultimate realization, that what they say, that I am the truth. Like Al-Haq means the truth. But the Sufi saints, through mysticism, when they go to that realization, they start saying Anal-Haq. Those who are just believers in the doctrines and dogmas, they say it's a blasphemy. Anal-Haq means I am the truth. You have become one with that. They will say it is a blasphemy. You cannot say that. Even in Christian mysticism, we will find the same thing. They feel that I am one with the reality. Even in the life of Christ, the greatest mystic, he says, I and my Father are one. It comes from the depth of that realization. I and my Father are one. So this unitary experience happens in that last moment, that the very intense meditation of the ego has fallen off. That's why Sri Ramakrishna, when someone is to ask Ramakrishna, when shall I be free? His answer is to be, when I, this I is within the inverted comma, when I cease to be, when the I is no more there, then automatically you become free. The entire spiritual journey is to get rid of this petty, punny I, this small ego. Once you get rid of it, you are a realized soul. So now you will find what Sri Ramakrishna is saying is a wonderful thing. That yes, God can be realized through bhakti and bhakti alone. How? But it must be ripe bhakti. The real, where that love has developed. It is not just that following the scriptural injunctions, following the instructions of the Guru, I do my japa, I do some meditation in the morning and the evening, I do certain practices. These are all preparatory bhakti. These all are intended to develop that intense love. As in the Chaitanya Charitamrita it has been mentioned, Ei Harinam Nite Nite Bhakti Mukul Fudbechite. As you go on taking the name of Lord, the bhakti, which is in the form of bud in the core of your heart, that blossoms. Bhakti mukul. Mukul is the bud, footway. It will blossom in your heart. So it is there, already there. It is potentially there. It will bloom once you go on repeating it. And when it blossoms, the bhakti has now become ripened. It is raga bhakti. Now no one has to say you that you have to do this practice. Automatically, out of love, you will find your meditation has become spontaneous. And this meditation is going to take you to that ultimate realization. Know it for certain. And now that's what Sri Ramakrishna is saying. But it must be ripe bhakti, prema bhakti and raga bhakti. When one has that bhakti, one loves God even as the mother loves the child the mother, and the wife the husband. When one has such love and attachment for God, one doesn't feel the attraction of Maya to wife, children, relatives and friends. One returns only compassion for them. To such a man, the world appears a strange land, a place where he has merely to perform his duties. It is like a man's having his real home in the country, but coming to Calcutta for work, he has to rent a house in Calcutta for the sake of his duties. When one develops love of God, one completely gets rid of one's attachment to the world and worldly wisdom. So that's again the thing, very nice thing, that once you develop the love for God, the love for the world is bound to fall off. You may say, how? How is it? When in our life, I start loving something that doesn't entail in my having detachment from other things, all the love coexist. They can coexist. Then how can the love of God is something which can never coexist with the world? How? So again, this is very interesting thing that we were just now saying, that when we go on repeating the name of Lord, gradually, because of that neuroplasticity, as if our mind gets wired, a path is created, and the devotions automatically wells up. But this is not only for the love of God. In our life, to the entire process of evolution, what has happened? Out of necessity, whatever we have repeated, that has created the same wiring, and we have developed inordinate attachment, love for all those things. Here Sri Ramakrishna indicates that word Maya. What is Maya? This inordinate attachment which we have developed for the worldly things. How it has happened? Out of necessity, what we have resorted to again and again. In the gospel, you will find in so many contexts, Sri Ramakrishna is saying, this lust and gold is Maya. Why it is so? You will understand, very easily you will understand. That see, for life to be sustained, lust is necessity. To sustain our life, gold, wealth is necessity. But when we go on pursuing it, lives together, as we believe in transmigration, lives together, it has become so deep-rooted path in our mind that we are highly obsessed by it. The necessity has become an obsession. So much obsession in the news. If you just see any crime throughout the world, at last you will find it is either related to lust or gold, nothing else. So what has happened? The necessity by constant pursuit has got converted into a terrible obsession. Similarly, now we say that let us develop a new type of love for the divine. When I go on practicing again and again, it's the limitation of the mind. The path will be created and I am bound to develop a love for God. Now it can coexist with the love for my world, isn't it? There's so many paths, this is also a path. But the scripture says they cannot coexist. Why? Why they cannot coexist? Now it's very interesting. All the paths in the mind which we have created through the entire process of evolution is dependent on something external. It's external, it is extraneous. What is external? See, my relation, I love someone. It is something external. I want wealth, love for wealth. Wealth is external. My love for name and fame, it is all external. So what happens? When I don't have them, I am intensely yearning for them. There is a constant fear within me, constant worry. I may not get it. I may not get it. Whether it's relation, whether it is some position in life, whether it is some qualification, academic excellence, whatever it may be, I may not get it. And when I get it, again that fear is there. I may lose it. The relation, whether it is relation, whether it is wealth, whether it is name and fame, I cannot have it through eternity. I may lose it. I will lose it. So all our love, which through the process of evolution which I have developed, they being external, it is always related with worries and tension. This new love for the divine. I have started loving God. It is something which is within. No one can take it away from me. I just have to sit down and think of the divine sitting in my heart, and immediately the bliss which ensues. Can anyone take it away from me? It is something intrinsic. It is not extrinsic. As a result, you have developed love for something which no one can take away from you. It is free from worries and tension. So now you have created a path in the mind which has no traffic. All other love, being external, is as if passing through the traffic, through various junctions. Like when I am passing through the road where there is a crossing, what happens? If I get green signal, the other is bound to get the red signal. If he gets the green signal, I am bound to get the red signal. What it speaks of? There is a job, advertisement for a job. There are only 10 vacancies and there are 100 applicants. So if the 10 who gets, the remaining won't get it. It's just like that in the crossroad. The one gets the green signal, other gets the red signal. So that is full of worries and tensions. But now I have created a new road where there is no junction. It is like the freeway. There is no junction. There is no crossing. It is something intrinsic. So what will happen? Even in our day-to-day life, we find that if I have to travel, my tendency, what will be my tendency? If there is this the road through the traffic, I will avoid. Why will I go through all those junctions? I will take the freeway. So similarly, once in our mind, we develop the road of devotion, which is like a freeway, which has no junction. It is something intrinsic. So you develop a natural tendency to traverse through this path and avoid all those paths. They fall off. Because they're full of junctions. Why should I go through those worries, tensions? I don't need them. I need this path. And that's how the more you develop the love for divine, the more the love for other things starts falling off. You always want to enjoy the tranquility, the peace, the equanimity that comes from the love of the divine. Why should I go through all those turmoils and tensions? Naturally, they start falling off. Is there any fool who wants to suffer knowingly? No. So here I have developed a path where there is no tension, no question of losing. As Mirabai's song, that famous song is there, that this love is a treasure. What type of treasure? It never gets expended. Kharche nahi koi. It never gets expended. The more you practice, the more the path in your mind gets deepened. The groove becomes deepened. The more intense your love becomes. So there is no question of expending it. The more you resort to it, the more intense is your life. Kharche nahi koi. Chor na leve. No one can steal it from you, as it is something intrinsic. Wealth can be stolen. Relations can break. So this, no one can take this away. Chor nahi leve. Dina dina varat savayo. The more you practice, the more intense it becomes. As Sri Ramakrishna says, that to love of the divine, how intense it should be. But when you go on practicing, at last it becomes so intense. He's saying that you take the three most intense love which we find in the world. The mother's love for the child, a miserly person's love for the wealth, and a wife's love for the husband. These are three intense love. You add them. The intensity that you imagine, that type of intensity when you develop, you're bound to realize God. And that happens because we are prone to traverse this path again and again at the cost of, at the expense of this all other parts. We don't want them because they're full of worries and tensions. This becomes, once you develop this path, your natural tendency is to traverse to this path. That's why in the gospel, in other contexts, Sri Ramakrishna says, the more you go towards the east, the west falls behind. I cannot push the west. If I have to avoid the west, I simply have to travel towards the east. West will automatically fall behind. I cannot just simply push it off. So I cannot forcefully renounce the world. The more I develop love for God, the other things are bound to fall off naturally, spontaneously. So that's the thing Sri Ramakrishna is indicating, that when one has such love and attachment for God, one doesn't feel the attraction of Maya to wife, children, relatives and friends. Then does he become hard-hearted? No. One returns only compassion for them. Now it is very interesting that compassion is something which is innate within us. We don't have to develop. When the mother loves the child, mother cannot claim that this love is something which I am loving. Will you find any creature where the mother doesn't love the child? Even in the animal world, you will find the mother is ready even to sacrifice her life for the children. So this love is something which God has implanted in our heart. It is something which is there. But because we have the sense of karta, that I am the doer, we suffer. I think I love, and when that love is not reciprocated, I suffer. If the mother knows for well that it is the God who is taking care of his creation through me, it is God who has implanted that love in my heart, and I'm bound to love because the God is taking care of his creation through me. So I'm just the instrument. I'm just the instrument. It is the love of God. So that's the wonderful thing. So when your ego falls off because of your devotion, what remains? Not that inordinate attachment which comes from Maya. You now become aware of the fact that love which is there in my heart, it is actually something which God has implanted. It is God's will. That love is spontaneous. I don't have to will it. It is there. It comes out naturally. When I see a beggar and I just feel sympathy and try to give some a few cents, if it is out of ego, I feel, oh, it is I who have donated. But if we really try to find out, to dive deep within, that seeing that poor man, the sympathy welled up, am I who have created that sympathy? It is something spontaneous. It was there. Our genes are altruistic. We are made by God in that way. As in the Bhagavad Gita, that sloka says that Saha Yagya Prajasrishtva. When he created with the concept of Yagya. Yagya means interbeing, synergy, relating each other. So when the ego falls off, that it is not I who am loving. It is God's love which is channelized through me. And as God has given that love to take care of this instrument, to take care of his creation, I am just the instrument. As in Bhagavad Gita, again and again, Bhagavan is saying, Nimitta matra bhava sabhyasach. Just become an instrument, nimitta. So the more the ego falls off, the more the devotion is there, the more the ego vanishes. The only thing that remains is the compassion. That's what he's saying. No more Maya. To such, one returns. It doesn't become just like a cabbage, inert. You put a knife, it doesn't react. Many think that spiritual life, detachment means becoming more and more inert. No. That real love comes. The real love is something which we can understand. We don't have real love. Even our own near and dear one is in the hospital, is in the ICU. Sometimes we'll find the doctors try to keep us at distance from them. Why? Because we will go there and wail and cry and just we will lose all our compose, and that is something which is going to harm the patient. You will never find, however great a surgeon is, that he is operating on his own son. If his son has to be operated, he may be the most efficient surgeon. But for his own son, he will request some other surgeon to operate. Why? Because he knows that love in the form of maya, in the form of infatuation, won't allow his mind to keep tranquil. He will be extremely tensed. All his skills won't be of any avail, because he will be very much tensed. If it is his own son, what it speaks of that inordinate attachment, where it doesn't allow us to really love. The real love would have allowed him to operate on, even in his own son, with composure. If he could have been that spiritually enlightened, that it is God's love which is working through me. I am just an instrument. Let me do the work perfectly. So you will find the love which we think as love is actually some maya, inordinate attachment. It is abhisneha, it is not sneha. In Bhagavad Gita you will find it is mentioned that a sthita pragya, he becomes anabhisneha. Sneha is good, but abhisneha is infatuation. But one who becomes more and more spiritually enlightened, that infatuation falls off. What remains is pure compassion. And that's what God is saying. Ramakrishna is saying, one returns only compassion for them. To such a man, the world appears a strange land, a place where he has merely to perform his duties. It's like a man's having his real home in the country, but coming to Calcutta for work. He has to rent a house in Calcutta for the sake of his duties. When one develops love of God, one completely gets rid of one's attachment to the world and worldly wisdom. So very nice. So detachment doesn't mean running away from the life. You still continue with all your duties, but with detachment. What's the detachment like? What's that real renunciation? So do we give another example? The example of a small child for the first time going to the child care center. For the first time he is going to the child care center. As till now he was always only with his parents. So the child feels unplugged, insecure. The moment the father goes to drop the child or the mother goes to drop the child in the child care, it cries, wails, it doesn't want. The mother has to keep and go back. The child doesn't want. They almost forcefully, the child has to be kept there. And those who are in the childcare, they say, don't worry, it will be okay. Within a few days, it will be okay. And it's really, in a few days, you will find the child is now not crying when you drop him. Not only that, now he has developed new friends and he starts playing in the childcare center. And now the opposite thing happens. In the evening, when you go to bring back the child, it is so busy with all the children, other children. They has developed new friends, doesn't want to come back. Now it starts crying when the father goes and says, no, you have to come. No. So for the beginning, he was crying when he was dropped there, and now he has started crying when you have to take them back. It continues for a few days, and then you will find the child is not crying anymore. When you drop, then also it's not crying. When you go to take him back, then also not crying. What has happened? He has developed the detachment. What's the detachment? Now it has registered in the child's mind that this child care is a temporary place. It's not my permanent place. Every day morning my parents will come and drop me there. I will be playing with all the children throughout the day. In the evening, father will come or mother will come and take me back. That's the real home. This is just a temporary place for some time to pass. Once this idea registers, then what happens? The child doesn't cry when he's dropped, doesn't cry when he's been again brought back. But at the same time, he's not sitting in the corner of the child care center, not relating to others, thinking, oh, after it's a temporary place, why have to relate with them? I don't need. Let me wait for my parents to come in the evening, I will go back with them. No, that's not the fact. Fact is, he's playing, he's enjoying with other children. But in the back of the mind, that idea is there. In the evening, father will come, take me back home, and that's the real place. But as long as I'm here, with that idea that this is not the permanent place for me, this is just the place for the time being, and as long as I'm here, I relate with others. I'm playing, I'm enjoying. But a sense of detachment is there. I know always that this is not the place where I am going to be be always. And that's the same idea Sri Ramakrishna is saying. That what? That a man having his real home in the country, in a village, but coming to Calcutta for work. He has rent a house in Calcutta for the sake of his duties. So he's doing all the work, but his mind is there in the village, with his family, with his children. But at the same time, he's going on with with all the responsibility which he has. So such is the state of a man of renunciation, when you have developed love for God. So when one develops love of God, one completely gets rid of one's attachment to the world and worldly wisdom. So if we read between the lines, it's wonderful. You'll find what Sri Ramakrishna is saying, that though you may be in house as a householder, that doesn't mean that you cannot be detached. Simply, still you can be detached. As very nicely it has been said by some saint, that be a holy man. Don't pose as a holy man. And pose as a householder. Don't become a householder. We just do the opposite. We pose as a holy man. We never really become holy man. And we are intensely attached to the householder. We can never pose that I am a householder. A spiritual journey is just the opposite. Pose as if others will feel you are extremely attached. But in the bottom of your heart, you know, you have no attachment. Just for the time being, as you have been placed in in the family with certain responsibilities, you seek not, you avoid not. Knowing yourself to be the instrument in the hand of divine, you go on doing everything to the best of your capability. And there it ends. It's really a practice. It's very easy to say. It's easier said than done. But it is not impossible. It is something very difficult. As Sri Ramakrishna says, that when we are discussing all these things, how easily we say it. But we know that how difficult it is. And sometimes we say, these are all poetic words. Is it really possible? So we should never equate impossibility with difficulty. It is very difficult to climb the Everest, but it is not impossible. It is very difficult to develop that intense love for God, which enables us to develop that sense of detachment. It is very difficult. It's not easy, but it is not impossible. Then we may say, as it is difficult, I understand it's not impossible, but let us leave it. Let us not bother about it. I am quite happy with the way of life I am leading. So scripture says, Nanya pantha vidyate ayanaya. There is no other way. What you think as happiness is a mere patchwork. It can never really give you happiness in this life. In the name of happiness, all our pursuits at last is going to end up in suffering. Why? As simple reason. Whatever thing I am clinging to is a flow. I can never grasp it. It is never going to stay with me. It is going to flow away. And it is going to enter in suffering. So, this world, all the pursuits are dukkha and dukkha alone, suffering. Only this thing, this love for God, once I have developed that, no one can take it away from me. I have realized the real spiritual dimension of my existence, which speaks of that eternity. That alone is the thing, when you become one with it, that's the thing which no one can take away from you. That's the only thing which can give us that happiness, the ultimate fulfillment. And so that's why Nanya Pantha, there is no other way. Though it is difficult today or tomorrow, this life or the next life, however we may just turn our face away from it, know it for certain, we, because of our need for that eternal happiness, no fool will say, I don't want happiness. There's a thing which we need for that eternal quest for happiness. At last, we have to turn around and turn towards the divine, because that ultimately is the only thing which is going to give us happiness. It is difficult, but it is not impossible. And though it is difficult, that is the only thing we have to attain. So why not start as early as possible? Why waste time? As Swami Vivekananda used to say very nicely, that you have wasted so many lives thinking that the worldly way of life is going to give you happiness. We have wasted. We have, with all our education, we got some good job, we were established in life, And then what nature gives again takes away. At certain time I find the old age has started coming, my mind has started becoming weak, body is weak, I have to leave my job, nature has started taking away. And I will find at last that I have lot of wealth I cannot enjoy because my health after all is failing. Lot of food is there, I cannot digest. So what's the way? This at last, this jara, vyadhi, mrityu. Whatever the nature has given, it takes away. And then at the last end of my life, we will find people are so dejected. Why? What after all life gave me? Whatever it gave, it took away. What all these pursuits has actually ended up? Nothing, nowhere. So that's why Swami is saying, thinking this worldly way of life as a be-all and end of your existence, you have wasted so many life. You may sometimes feel what I am saying, that the spiritual goal is the only goal. You may feel that it is useless. But after all, you have wasted so many life. Why not give just you may think that it is a waste. But you have already wasted so many life. So knowing very well that you have wasted so many life and you are thinking that my words also is a waste, why not give it a chance and just see that whether it really gives you the cash down payment or not. It really gives you that happiness or not. So you have wasted so many lives. Why not waste just a life for me, one life? So that's the thing for which Sri Ramakrishna has descended. All the avatars have descended to show us the way, that we are deluded in this world of worldliness. From that to show that way, how you just will find in simple words, they're trying to show us the way out from this world, from this quagmire of suffering, from this world of meaninglessness. So that's the thing which we find Sri Ramakrishna is saying insistently again and again. One cannot see God if one has even the slightest trace of worldliness. Matchsticks, if damp, won't strike fire, though you rub 1,000 of them against a matchbox. You only waste a heap of sticks. The mind soaked in worldliness is such a damp matchstick. So that's the thing. That's as we will find in Tulasidas, that's famous in one of the doha, he says, Jaha Ram taha nahi kam, Jaha kam taha nahi Ram. Where the Ram is, where the Lord is, there cannot be any desire, any worldliness. And where worldliness is, there cannot be God, there cannot be Ram. Jaha Ram taha nahi kam, Jaha kam taha nahi Ram. So you cannot row by standing on two boats at once. It is impossible. Either I give my life to God or I am drenched in worldliness. These two cannot go together. So even if there is a trace of desire, know it for certain, we cannot attain that highest spiritual attainment. It has all the desire has to fall off. There cannot be any trace of desire. Today's class I will just end with a very nice story. The story of this Kabir Das. I have just repeated so many times, but I find this story very interesting. I don't know how much truth is there in it, but these stories are meant to explain the subtleties of the spiritual truths. Sometimes to understand the spiritual truth as an abstract truth is very difficult. The stories helps us to understand what actually it is indicating. Because the story goes like that Ramananda, the guru of Kabir, he was on his deathbed. And you know, the India is a tropical country. We spend so much time, part of our life in outdoors. So he being a renunciate, his deathbed, a cot was kept just below a mango tree. And he was lying there and his devotees were all surrounding him. And Ramananda they were told that the moment I die, you will hear thousands of bells ringing in the skies in the heaven. The moment I die, you will find the thousands of bells. That shows that I have reached the heaven. Now after a few days, he passed away there. And the devotees heard nothing. There was nothing, they heard nothing. And all thought our guru most probably was in delirium. In the last moment, sometimes you see all sorts of hallucinations. He was in a delirium. And that's why he told all those things. But Kabir was a staunch devoter of Ramananda, his disciple. He told our guru's what? He's a living soul. His words can never be something useless. What has happened? He has not reached heaven. Well, he has not reached heaven? No. What has happened? You just then, Kabir Das showed there's one ripe, that it was the mango season was almost over. There was no mango. Only one ripe mango was there on the tree. Kabir told, I will prove to you that he haven't reached heaven. The devotees told, yes, you have to prove. Otherwise, we are not going to leave you. Because you're saying something which is scandalous. That Guru has at last moment got attached to something, has not reached heaven. Then what Kabir did? Well, okay, I will prove it to you. He climbed the tree. And plucked the mango, came down and asked for a knife. With a knife he cut the mango and a small insect came out from that mango. He placed between the fingers and pressed it. And immediately there was a ringing of bells in the heaven. So in the last moment, when seeing that mango, he had that desire to taste that mango. That little desire came, and immediately he was incarnated as that insect to taste the mango. So a very senior Swami, when I was in training center, he narrated this story to me and asked me, do you believe in it? Now that Swami was a very, very, that a bit, apparently bit, this short-tempered person, will get angry very quickly. So actually I didn't believe that story, but out of fear I told, yes, Maharaj, I believe. And then he told something very interesting. So in the Gospel, Sri Ramakrishna in one place is saying that in this world, anything and everything is possible. God is all powerful. Don't think that whatever is reasonable by your limited mind, you think that with my limited mind, whatever I can reason out, that's the only reality. Reality is something which is beyond your mind. So never say it is impossible. So whatever, whether it is a real story or not, but it indicates that subtle truth. Now what is the truth? That even there is the slightest desire, there cannot be mukti. That with one more story I will end today's class, that why that slightest desire speaks of no mukti. That our mind has thousands of desires, and they are all linked to the ego. The ego is like the hub of the will, and all the desires like the spikes. Some of them are visible, some of them are not visible. Suppose I like a delicacy, say a donut. But if it is not in my presence, I even forget about it. But suddenly someone brings, immediately I start salivating. What it speaks? That certain desires are not manifested. Most of them are some of them are manifested, some are not manifested. If I get favorable circumstances, they will manifest. So there are innumerable such desires, but they are all linked to that ego. I like this, I like that. So all are linked with that I. So I am a personality where I is the hub of the will, and all the spikes are the innumerable desires which I have developed through all the various lives. Now through my, this detachment, I may get rid of few of the desires which is disturbing me. Okay, through my detachment I can get. But what about the other desires which are not manifested? They're still there. If they get favorable circumstances, they will again manifest. How can I get rid of them? So my personality still remains intact. Just like a will. If one spike is broken, other spikes are there to still keep the will intact. But if I want the will to collapse, I need not have to break the spikes one by one. I just have to remove the hub of the will. All the spikes will fall at a time. It will collapse. Because all our likings are fixed to that hub, that I. So when through our spiritual practice the I falls off, the idea of the limited individual falls off, all the desires that are linked to it, they all fall off once at a time, not one by one. So the entire spiritual journey, what it speaks of, that there are some manifested desires that I have to take care of with my willpower to keep them attenuated. Why? Otherwise I cannot meditate. I cannot meditate. If my mind is always in turmoil, I cannot meditate. So I somehow with my practice, whatever desires are manifested, that I keep them attenuated. Now my mind is calm. With this calm mind, now I try to get rid of that hub. So this two type of practice. This is a preliminary practice where I get rid of the desires through my willful practice. And then with the calm mind, now I am not trying to get rid of all the desires one by one. I am trying to get rid of the hub, the ego. That ego is false. Actually, it is God and God alone. And as we were discussing today, that ego at last can be washed off. Then all the desires will fall off at a time. Otherwise, one by one, if I think that I will get rid of the desires, it is never possible. They are innumerable. And the personality will remain still intact. So there are two types of vairagya. One vairagya is that willfully what I am trying to renounce is vairagya. But something is in our scripture is called para vairagya, supreme renunciation. When with your spiritual practice you are trying to get rid of the hub. As in the Bhagavad Gita, it has been mentioned, only there are two practices, abhyasa, vairagya. Vairagya speaks of that renouncing all the desires which are manifested. And abhyasa speaks of, once I've got rid of that, my mind is to a certain extent calm, now I'm trying to get rid of the hub by trying to getting rid of the effacing my ego. Then what will happen? All the desires will fall off in one go, all at a time, because the hub has been removed, to which all the desires are linked. So with that story which we are saying, we will end today's class. It's a very funny story. Sri Ramakrishna is saying that when the real renunciation comes, it's not that we can get rid of the desires one by one. All of them fall off at a time. What's the story? Very interesting, funny story. That in a village, a man was just going to take a dip in the village pond. He was going to have a dip in the village pond. So he was wearing nothing, just he was wearing a loincloth. One towel as a loincloth, another towel was on the shoulder. So he was going to have a dip in the village pond. And now his wife suddenly called him and told, "Oh, you are extremely attached. Our neighbor has started developing detachment." But this man was a bit surprised. Well, what have you seen in him that makes you feel that he has started developing detachment? Then the wife told a very interesting thing. That man has 12 wives and he is renouncing them one by one. He is denouncing them one by one. Now this man, immediately, just some truth flashed in his mind. He told, "You are a fool. Can anyone renounce one by one? Do you want to see what renunciation is? Do you want to see?" And he went out. The wife thought he went out for having a dip in the village pond, but he never came back. No one knew where he has gone. He has gone for once for all. So that is the real renunciation. When you go once for all. So you cannot be it one by one. That renunciation can never happen one by one. You're renunciating. So that's the idea. So this Ramakrishna stories are so simple. Sometimes we miss the point that what actually is indicating. That even a trace of desire, if it remains, you know it for certain, the ego is still there. You are yet to go to that realization. When all the desire fallen off means the ego has fallen off. Then only all the desires can fall off. And that entails in ultimate realization. So this word, that's why we say the gospel appears to be so simple. But Swami Vivekananda used to say, it has transcended the Vedas and Vedanta. Transcended. The truths are so profound. If you really read it again and again, and as we evolve spiritually, you will find that there is no scripture which is so sublime, so profound as the gospel. The words are simple, but the truths are, there's layers of understanding, and it can take you to that highest degree of spiritual understanding and realization. So with this, we stop our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskar.